Recently, I've been doing a lot of videos where I just talk about how FPV used to be and why it sucks now. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I've been doing this for 8 years and I'm a grumpy old man. But there is some truth to my geriatric ranting. So this hobby has changed, and a lot of people that were in it from the get-go are now finding themselves flying less and not being as involved with the community as they once were. This has happened to me several times. I've definitely been bored of FPV after flying the same spots with the same gear and editing the same videos over and over and over again. But despite this being my job, this is still a huge passion of mine. It's just not the only one now. If you're anything like me and you've been flying FPV for years and you know you love to fly, but sometimes you just can't bring yourself to charge packs and drive to the spot, what do you do? What do you do?
What did I do?
Your first option, just quit. Well, not for good, but it's okay to step away from a hobby for a bit, especially one like FPV where we tend to go really hard in the beginning because it's such an exciting experience. It also takes time to get decent at, so a lot of us put in hours and hours of flights the first year or so and obsess over building a good flying quad, and that can lead to burnout or frustration if we aren't progressing how we'd like to. Like if you've been flying FPV for 6 years straight, you own 30 quads, but you still find your desire to fly is dwindling, it's okay. Those thousands of dollars you invested aren't going anywhere. I mean, look at analog. Those old goggles are still in demand for new pilots not wanting to fly digital. An example of this would be me and crawlers, right? 7 years ago, I went hard on 10th scale crawlers, and then I didn't touch them for a while. But last year, when I got back into it, my axial bomber was still there waiting for me. Sure, they're on to the third revision of it by now, but I don't care. Mine still works perfectly fine. And another nice bonus to taking a break, you stop chasing the latest and greatest gear and learn to have fun again with what you have. So I say if you want to take a year-long break to practice kite surfing or rock collecting instead of FPV, that's okay. Let that shit collect dust. Your money hasn't been wasted. You had years of good times with those quads, and they'll be there waiting for you when you get that spark again. And it will happen again. Nothing replaces the feeling of flying FPV. I know so many people that got burnt out on FPV and stepped away from it for a year or two, only to come back with a renewed passion. It's really hard to stay away from. Like right now as I'm recording this video, I just got back from Castle Crash and whooped the entire weekend. But I just got a new bind and flight to review, and I seriously can't wait to stop recording this so I can just go play with it. Not even record the video, just go play with the new whoop I got. Speaking of new gear, it's another way to get stoked on drones again. I can recall 2 specific times in my career that I was feeling the burnout and not super hype on Shred and Sky. I've been flying FPV for about 5 years or so, and at that time, I had my setup pretty dialed in. I was using my Bach Grinder frame with my Bach Grinder motors. I was analog Porta Vida, baby. I fucking hated digital. I had props that I liked and my TBS Crossfire, the best system out there. But I was bored. It was all the same shit, the same gear, the same office parks and bandos, the same video feed. I became too consistent. Now, this may be good for some people, but for me personally, I thrive on chaos and disorder. If I do the same thing for too long, I begin to despise that thing and the routine around it. It started with TBS Tracer. If you don't know, TBS Crossfire operates on 915, which has better range at the cost of some latency, while Tracer is 2.4 and has lower latency in exchange for reduced range. Both of these systems, however, will go very far and will fill very fast on the sticks. The reductions are minimal to the general pilot. So TBS made the Tracer system for racers to be an ultra-fast, ultra-low latency radio link, but it had the side effect of feeling pretty fucking good for freestyle. As someone who flew Crossfire daily for years, I could totally feel the difference in the systems. And that was all it took, something new. I got a new module for my radio, I got some new receivers, and I fleeted out all my quads with Tracer. It made FPV exciting again. Not only did I get a bunch of new gear, my flying experience was fresh again. This system felt familiar yet different since it was so much faster feeling. I should mention the same thing happened to a lesser extent when I switched to ELRS. Not so much a different feeling in flight, but it was fun to get all new stuff for my quads. The second time was when I finally switched to HD0. After being an analog OG forever, it felt super refreshing to see the world in HD while still having an ultra low latency video system. For real, the 2 times I was feeling sort of burnt out on FPV, all it took was drastically changing a part of my tried and true setup to get back in the game. It's frustrating when you have to learn like ELRS config when you've been using TBS agent for years, but that's also what keeps this hobby exciting, having to learn new things as they come out, especially because 90% of gear in this hobby is in a perpetual beta and it never works right. So if you've been flying the same gear for years and you can afford it, go and take out a second mortgage and upgrade your gear. Switch to digital if you're still an analog, buy an analog setup and rip some whoops if you're a DJI person. Try out a 7-inch or maybe get into cine whooping. There are a ton of ways to spend your money in this hobby, and sometimes that's what it takes to find the spark again. Also, go buy a Grinderino and a Demibot. This one is something I experienced personally. When I started flying tiny whoops, they sucked. You could only really fly them indoors, and the motors did not have enough chooch to do anything but fly in a straight line, so we all flew 5-inch. Sure, a few 3-inch frames existed back then, but motors and flight controllers for those sucked. They sucked ass and they caught on fire a lot. So if you want to rip, whoops were not an option. But in 2024, we have some incredibly capable 1S tiny whoops that people are absolutely shredding. And everything about these tiny aircraft are 1,000 times more convenient than larger quads. The batteries are cheaper and smaller, they take less time to charge, the quads themselves can be bought for around $100, which makes losing one not sting quite so much, and you can fly them safely, practically anywhere, including inside of Walmart. I know once I got really into whoops, I started flying my 5-inch less. Part of that may be because I live in a dense urban city and it's harder to just go down the street to fly a 5-inch. Part of it may also be because I live in a big, crazy city and whooping downtown is one of the funnest things ever. I mean, just take a look at FPV Vegan and tell me that man isn't having the time of his fucking life out there whooping in New York City. Tiny whoops bring a whole other dimension to FPV. They're tiny, harmless quads that are still a blast to fly, and like I said, you can fly them anywhere. I will say whoop races are also incredibly fun. I have no desire to race big quads, but I usually host a whoop race once a year for the homies because it's such a good time. All you need is a few gates, a couple buddies, and a venue. I know in Philly I have several venues I can rent out for under $200, and we have a blast. If you're burnt out on big quads or FPV in general, try just tiny whooping in interesting places and see if that doesn't reignite some passion for thrashing. Maybe you still have the desire to fly, but you're sick of all your local spots, and ripping your backyard just doesn't have the same appeal it once did. Well, go do something else, but bring your quads. Family camping trip, bring a whoop and terrorize your camp neighbors. Cousin getting married in South Dakota, bring a Gran Torino and rip the hotel at 3 a.m. while everybody's passed out. There have been so many times I've been invited to do something with my friends, and I'll bring my whoops just in case there's a burnt down car to rip or I see a lady with cat ears on an electric unicycle to chase downtown. You never know when some dude's gonna get caught shoplifting and chased by police while you're whooping a grocery store parking lot. And this combo of doing cool shit with your friends or family but bringing a small quad just in case has produced some of the most interesting videos I've seen. A lot of times my hobby burnout will be because I'm doing the same thing in the same place. If you ask me to go fly a 5-inch at the Bando school, I'll block you on the internet. But if you ask me to go fly a tiny whoop in the Dairy Queen, we're probably going to be good friends. Just getting out of your routine of spots or getting out of town to fly will re-energize your passion for sure. I know every time I go to meet up out of town, I'm stoked on FPV again because it feels fresh. And when you're in any hobby for an extended amount of time, the key really is to keep things fresh and interesting. As someone who's been doing this hobby for almost a decade and who does miss some of the things about the golden years, I really do think this is the best time to be getting in the hobby. The gear's on point now, freestyle's getting insane, we have motors and ESCs that can keep up with us, and new pilots actually have choices now as far as video systems and radio links. Some of them are pure garbage, but at least we have choices now. So if you're like me and you love FPV, but you feel the passion waning and it's getting harder and harder to sit there and charge packs, just remember it's okay to take a break, it's okay to quit. FPV isn't going anywhere, and you can always pick up right where you left off. Or you can double down and dump a bunch of money into new gear and hope that works, like it did for me. Either way, it's your life, and you should do what makes you happy, as long as it's not negatively affecting anybody else. We're truly lucky to be living in an age where something like an FPV drone exists for hobbyists. And while some people may be using them to take the lives of others for profit, they have helped countless people overcome substance abuse, depression, and countless other issues. This hobby goes a lot deeper than just flying toy helicopters. All right, homies, that's going to do it for today's video. I honestly feel right now myself getting a little burnt out. So I'm going to make a couple of videos that aren't going to have much FPV in them in the next month. I'm doing a little bike trip. I'm going to do some crawler stuff. It's going to be RC stuff, right? I'm going to do a bunch of RC stuff, but it's not going to be like FPV specific. There's still going to be plenty of FPV. But for me, myself, to avoid burnout, I'm going to have to switch stuff up and just film some different type of content, you know? But this will always remain an FPV drone channel, so that's not going anywhere. If you're excited about seeing new stuff and you want to see it before anybody else, I do have a Patreon right here. You get to watch all my videos a week before anybody. I send you stickers in the mail. You can private chat me and stuff. And I don't know, I think that's it. And if you want to watch some more of my videos, I have this one right here. What's this one? This one's good. I yell at you about some stuff. You should watch this one. More importantly, though, I promise next time we'll be better. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, bye.